no sympathy. I don't mind, doesn't mean that much to me. Ain't too proud to be, sweet darling, please don't leave me, don't you know? Ain't too proud to plead, baby, baby, please don't leave me, don't you know? When I heard cried man, is that for man?
Yeah, and welcome, and yeah, I've got another load of nonsense to give you. And this week, the load of nonsense is all about the ancient pyramids in Egypt, which, by the way, if you haven't noticed, are all very unbelievably right, and I mean unbelievably. Scientists have studied this, and the precision is amazing. They're all unbelievably triangular. And who made them? Well, I have a theory, in actual fact, that I'm sure you'd love to hear, that it was, in actual fact, with help from aliens. At that time in Earth's history, there was a lot of aliens going all around the world. They were kind of commissioned to build big stone things here and there. Easter Island, big funny things of heads and I don't know what. They didn't know what they were doing there. They were the stonemason aliens who just weren't very good, you see. They were kind of like, it was a project that no one wanted, none of the aliens wanted, and they put in a cheap tender and they got it. And they went over to South America, Central America, built the big Mayan pyramids. There's some big, I think there's even some pyramids in Tonga. They went over there. Because those particular ones, they liked the coconuts, you know, and they liked the Pacific way of life. They were there for a few years. Got it finished. Eventually, anyway, they all ended up back in Egypt for the big project, the big 2.5 million ton Giza pyramid. And, yeah, it was to be a big tourist attraction. They were going to put an empty tomb in there and tell everyone it's a... You know, it's going to be a tomb for the king. But really, what it was to store cabbages in, you see. And they would fill it up with cabbages, and everyone would come in and they'd sell, say, here's a cabbage. 10 Egyptian pounds. That's a fairly expensive cabbage, but you don't realise where it comes from. From the middle of the pyramid, you see, and it has a special energy from this vortex of energy that extends up into the atmosphere. And so people would take these cabbages home and they'd eat them, and they would believe anyway that they had this magical energy coming from the central chamber in the great Giza pyramid. But anyway, before they got to that point, they had to build them, funnily enough. So yeah, they built the pyramids with these sort of elevators. I know they're very similar to the modern elevators that we have in shopping malls. They were originally an alien invention. And they would just put the blocks on like that, you see, and they were really strong, these aliens, okay? And one would be behind, holding it like this, and one would sit on it to stop it sort of sliding down the elevator, and they'd get up to the top, and they'd have to... And they just make sure they jumped off so they didn't catch their feet underneath. And they just do it like that. They just had this massive elevator. So they built it. And, yeah. It was really handy, actually, because not just for the cabbage trick, you know, and I mean, it was a bit of a scam, I mean, you know. But it was also handy because these particular aliens, the stonemason aliens, who were on Earth doing all this commission work, they loved it. They loved Earth, and they couldn't stand where they were from. I mean, they loved the Egyptian woman. They loved walking around like this all the time. They'd just walk around like that. They thought it was funny. They started laughing. And they'd go to a party like that, you know, and just to mix in with the Egyptians, you know. And, yeah, they just loved Egypt, and they loved Earth. And they didn't want to go back to, you know, short alien woman with funny eyes, boring conversation, and that really desolate, barren, dry, boring planet. You know, they just didn't want to go back there. And of course, because they had these funny eyes they couldn't see very well. They didn't have very good eyesight. And even though they'd invented the modern elevator thousands of years ago, they just never really worked out how to invent glasses, you know. So they couldn't see very well. So in order to see that these alien ships were coming, because the planet that they were from would send someone back to Earth to pick them up, you know, to take them back. They didn't want to go back. So for years, for example, they had the old ladder in the desert trick, as you know, and one of them would be holding on like this, and it was 200 foot high, you know, because they had to get that high in order to then look out and see if the spaceships were coming. But they weren't that strong, you know, and so you'd get a little gust of wind or something, and the little fella at the top would fall down and splat in the sand. They also tried the old 200 foot high stack of hay trick, clamber up there. The problem was the camel would come along and start eating the hay at the bottom. So in the end, the pyramids were a fantastic thing for the aliens. They created enormous tourist revenue in Egypt, and they sold a lot of these magic cabbages that they conned everyone into, having magical esoteric energy from the energy emanating from the centre of the pyramids. They had a lookout, and they'd get up the top there of the pyramid, and they'd look out with their funny little eyes, and they'd see something coming and go, "Hey, ahoy! There's a spaceship coming," and they'd scamper down, and they'd run off, and they'd hide in the jungle, because Egypt back in those days was actually quite lush. And they'd hide behind a coconut tree, and the authorities from their planet would come, and they'd be looking around for them to take them back. Sometimes they'd find them, sometimes they wouldn't, because they much preferred the Earth woman with the normal shaped eyes, as they said. And that's what they used to say. They'd meet an Earthling woman at a party, and they'd say, "You have nice eyes." But they'd say that to all of them, and that's what the woman would say. I said, the Earth woman would say, "Yes, but you say that to all the girls, don't you?" And you'd say, "Yes, I do, because you just don't have those funny eyes that the girls have back home." So anyway, yeah, they were here for years, travelling all around the world, doing these sort of commissioned masonry jobs, and they got some fantastic perks, you know. In Central America, they got a lot of chocolate, for example. Chocolate and tobacco, they liked that. You know, they'd be stuck on the elevators, riding up and down. They used to love it, you know, and like a kid goes up and down the elevator. In the lunchtime, they wouldn't have any blocks on the elevators. They'd just ride the elevators. They just had this weird kick out of going up and down the elevators, you know. And yeah, so they had quite a reputation for being rather eccentric, the outcasts from this far-off, distant planet. But anyway, there you go. There's an absolute load of nonsense for you this week. Who actually made the pyramids in Egypt and how they were made. So there you go. I've solved another riddle. And thanks for watching. Rate my video if you will. I'd appreciate that. And even better, I'd love it if you could subscribe to Water Sprinkler Productions. Cheers, and I'll see you next week.
Oh, I'm not ashamed to come to plead with you, baby.